Hey and welcome. My name is Grace, and if you feel like listening to a middle-aged woman talk about decks, you came to the right place. I just felt like I felt like a little deck talk video where I'm going to talk. Well, I'm going to answer some questions from one. I think one question is from Patreon. Another one I think was from Instagram, and just common question. And it's I've been asked the same question in different spheres or similar context, kind of a different question, whatever. Over the years, over the months, over the past weeks, or whatever, I just feel like talking about decks today and divination and all that stuff. Specifically, I want to talk a little bit about the care and keeping of our divination decks. So I'm going to start with, I don't know. I just feel like talking about the care and keeping. Let's just see where this goes. All right, get yourself a beverage. I have no idea how long I'm going to go with this. So let's get started. I brought 3 decks with me for my video today. Just the ones I use the most. To talk about how I care for them. And now, if you're tuning in for the first time, my sensibilities when it comes to my divination tools, all of them, probably pretty much everything, but right now we're just talking about cards, decks, tarot decks, oracle decks, any kind of set of cards that I use to divine. In my perspective, they have a spirit. They have personhood. So if that is not your paradigm, you're probably going to be looking at me like, but that's okay. That's okay. And if it's not for you, you could go watch something else, right? But I just wanted to get this out in the open right here, right away from the get-go. To me, they have personhood. They have a spirit. They are spiritual tools, but they also are inspirited, or they're like people. They're like persons, not people, persons. Okay. This is my weekly this is my deck that I use on my altar. And I have, it's more of a shrine actually than an altar. It's basically the cabinet where my decks live, and right above it there's a shrine set up to land spirits. And this is the deck that I draw from once a week, and I've been doing this now since 2020. So, oh my God, time just flies, right? So I've been doing this since, I'm pretty sure since I got it, early 2020, where I will draw a card once a week, and that energy, that tells me what the energy of that week is going to be. It didn't start that way. It began with me drawing a card to learn the deck, because I was new to Thoth in 2020, or 2019. No, but I got this one in 2020, early 2020, January. And it was a manner for me to learn the cards, because the imagery was different than what I've read with my whole life up until then, which was Rider-Waite Smith and then Morgan Greer. So I started doing that, and it was in learning the cards, like becoming familiar with them. I noticed while doing that it was literally giving me a read of the energy that would dominate for the week, which also promoted my learning the imagery on this deck. Pardon me, because, sorry, I don't know, it's like whenever I get in front of the camera I gotta sneeze, and I always have to like hold it back. But anyway, I apologize. And I've been doing it ever since. it never, oh my gosh, it never fails. It's this is a very, very magical deck. Like if you're watching me for the first time, if you just happen to be on landing on my video because you're looking into tarot decks and you're thinking you're wanting to get into it, I really recommend you start with something very traditional. And yeah, everyone's going to say, no, you should start with whatever one you're drawn to. No, start with something traditional, because even if you're not drawn to the art, you learn something. You learn correspondences. And those could be then, those correspondences can be applied to any other deck you end up liking later. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'm not gonna focus too much on that. This is like my personal opinion. This is freaking magical. I use it as my compass. I use it as an energetic compass. I use it as a shit detector because if I draw a card at the start of the week, and it's one of those cards that's a warning card, forewarned is forearmed. I gotta tell you, man, it really makes a difference. So it's my shit detector, it's my compass, and it never gets old for me. I always marvel at how whatever energy shows up in the card at the start of the week, the manner in which it presents itself is intriguing, and it's educational. It keeps me interested in tarot, even when I'm not interested in tarot. Okay, so this is the bare minimum of what I do when I'm not interested in tarot. Right now, I'm in a very interested mode of tarot, which is and oracle decks and divination and all that stuff, which is probably why I wanted to yap about decks today, the care and keeping of decks. So this one, care and keeping. So this one, I keep it in the cabinet with the rest of my decks. It has its own box. It has like a little black wooden chest that it lives in. And there's a smoky quartz in there, and some sandalwood incense, and that's it. And that's how its apartment has been furnished since day one. So that's my weekly draw deck, which then brings me to wanting to discuss a little bit about. I got a question on Patreon asking about how do I deal with. I should have read it, right? Like I should have had it like open in front of me with my phone. But the question was regarding when a deck doesn't read for you anymore. Let's talk about that. So in my experience, there's been different kinds of decks that don't read for me anymore. So let's focus. Let's focus on not anymore. Not it never read out of the box, because that's, for me, I feel that if a deck doesn't read for me out of the box, I'm probably not very likely to give it a lot of time. You know what I'm saying? Because I have quite a substantial collection of decks. Nothing in the realms of back in the days of the madness, but I still have my original decks I started with before I went into overconsumption. And so I still have the baseline that I coming into watching tarot content on the internet, and what I had prior to falling into the consumerism. And so that's my baseline, and then I have some new ones or whatever. Probably the same amount of the ones I started out with I have in new decks I acquired afterwards. So in my perception, in my experience, what I have is quite substantial. It all fits in a cabinet, and it's all very whatever. This is very personal, how many decks you own. So since I brought it up, we're gonna go down this path a little bit. It's very personal how many decks you own. My late Kuma, Terry, she had one tarot deck her whole life. It was one, just one. And she was more than content with that one. She described it as being part of her, and I thought that was really romantic. And I agonized a long time over wishing I was that way. I'm not, because even from the very beginning, I had playing cards and a tarot deck, like going back 40 years. More than 40 years, I'm sorry. I've been around a long time. I've been reading cards since I was 6 years old. So, yeah. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. So I agonized over this, and I have to say, like, it really was a bit of like a mind, not to drop the F-bomb yet. It's still early in the video. Where I got stuck with that, oh, I wish I was like Terry. I wish I only had one deck. Why can't I be like that? Well, then I realized that I'm also a perfume collector. And although I don't have a vast collection, I don't have a perfume room. I don't collect museum pieces or niche, or at least not intentionally. A lot of what I collect is vintage, and it's very personal. Just as I don't have one bottle of perfume, I don't have one deck. Okay. So in that case, when a deck stops reading for you, well, you can always pick up a different deck in your collection if you're like me and you have more than one. But what if it's your only deck? What if you're one of those people that just one deck, one tarot deck, that is all you need in your life, or even an oracle deck or whatever it is, and it's not reading for you? What to do then? Well, because let's go back to the fact that I live in a space where they have personhood. I also am, my belief system, and from experience, from working with these spiritual tools my whole life, is that they are a phone, for lack of a better metaphor right now. They are a conduit. They are a communication device with the spirit world, with the unseen world. So my experience when a deck stops reading for me is that no one's picking up the phone on the other end. And I find that probably to be like that, like you get that rejection, that feeling of rejection. Pardon me, my dog is alerting us that there's someone at the door. And there's a feeling of rejection that goes with that in my paradigm, right? But let's approach it just because I brought my Morgan Greer, because this one is a classic example of a deck that goes hot and cold. We've been together 30 years. And this one goes hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. To read for others, I find there's a huge difference. When I read for others, my Old Faithful, which is I'll share with you after I talk about this one, always performs. It practically reads itself. It's like I stand back and go, whoa, every time. It never gets old for me, But when I'm reading for myself, this here is Miss Hot and Cold. So what I do, and I'm not an expert, people. I'm not an expert. I'm not an authority. I'm just someone who loves this shit and has been doing it for a long time, and I've worked out ways to problem solve over the years. First thing I do is I put the deck back in order. Sometimes I've discovered there was a card missing. And then I end up remembering, oh shit, I used it for whatever. I used it for a spell, or I used it for whatever. Usually it's for a spell. And then go find it, and I put it back in the deck. And I put it back in order. And you could use different things. I like to use salt. I will just stick it in salt. Now, salt is corrosive. Salt draws moisture out. Salt is damaging. So a layer of tissue paper around, just regular tissue paper like you would find in a gift, or and you would use to pad a gift or something like that, right? Does not interfere with the clearing of your deck, and it protects your deck. Now, how long does it take? So, I am not you gotta leave it in salt for 24 hours. I have literally taken my deck, stuck it in salt, give it a good riffle shuffle, put it in order, stick it in salt, and you could stick it in a bowl of salt. I have a bowl of salt that I just have for magical workings, right? That I use to clear anything like objects, my decks. I basically bought a cheap $1 box of coarse sea salt, and I have some in a bowl to hold my incense sticks. You know what I mean? You can't get it's very versatile salt. Not just in life. It's very versatile in esoteric life as well. Anyway, so I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. Let me start. So first thing I do is I take the deck and I put it in order. Placing it in order will instantly alert me if there's a card missing because I pulled it out and I used it for something. The second thing I do is I stick it in salt. Now, it could be 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, whatever you feel works for you. I'm telling you now, salt will clear a deck in 5 minutes. Probably even sooner. The second it comes in contact with salt banishes, crappy energy, to put it in layman's terms. Then I give it a good riffle shuffle, and this is why. Because the riffle shuffle is rhythmic. It's rhythmic. It really mixes the cards well, but you have air, so you had the salt, the earth element, and I like the riffle shuffle because air passes through my deck. You hear it in the riffle. The air passes through the deck, and it is a communication device. It is an air element device. That's why it's important to me that it riffle shuffles. So I will be honest, what limits my collection is cards that are good quality that riffle shuffle. That's a big limitation, and also because I'm a little fussy, because after the overconsumption I learned a lot about myself and I gained a lot of discernment. Placing it in order, placing it in salt. You could also place it in salt for 5 minutes and then put it away in a dark box with a crystal Or, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't leave it in salt for an extended period of time. It's not necessary, but you got to do what feels right to you, because magic is very personal. It's a very personal experience. But for me, I would just salt it, and if I needed it right away, then I would like riffle shuffle it a lot. And I mean like riffle shuffle it. Like, I find it very soothing. I find it very relaxing to riffle shuffle a deck. But just until it feels like it's had a lot, enough air running through it, and the energy is clear. Like, the energy is already clear because of the salt, but now you're putting energy back into it, your own energy, right? So that's what I misspoke. You feel like, at the moment, you keep riffle shuffling until you feel like you've imbued it with your energy. And then it should read for you again. Sometimes I just put them away. I place them in order, put them in salt, and then put them away. And, whether you have a night... Look, this box is incredible. I love this box. Someone who loves me, my friend, gifted me this box years ago, and this is where my Morgan Greer lives. But I just place it back in its box, and I put it away, and I use something else. But when this was my only deck, I used to do what I just described, and then use it right away after riffle shuffling it, and replenishing it with my energy. Now, so that is all I do. And honestly, it's effective for me. I haven't, it's not more complicated than that. But then this is a deck that has always been hot and cold for me. And then this, the Rider-Waite, this is the Centennial one, from US Games. This one has never been hot and cold to read for other people. This one is the one that I described that reads itself, like does the reading for me. It's like zero effort. It like really speaks clearly to me that I'm able to interpret what I see to communicate to the querent. I would do the same thing with this one that I did with my Morgan Greer. But this one, so far I've never had to do it. This one stays clear, and I'm starting to think it has more to do with when I read for myself than when I read for the public. See, because I don't read for myself with this one, because this one I don't know what it's saying when I'm reading for myself. I actually use different decks to read for myself. This one has never, since the first one I got in 1986, the Rider-Waite has never been a deck that I feel reads clearly for me personally. For other people, like a hot damn. For me, So, and that's how I ended up with the Morgan Greer that turned out to be like really hot and cold to read for me, but always performs for other people. So, and which is what matters when you read for the public, right? When you read for yourself, well, you can always, there's all these excuses. I was raised with, you can't read for yourself. First, it's not good to read for yourself. Well, no, because that would give you power if you could read for yourself. That's why we were taught back in my day. It's not good to read for yourself. But also there's certain personalities that become really addicted to reading their own cards. Just like there's personalities who become addicted going to fortune tellers. You know what I mean? Like it's a thing. It's a thing that occurs. And which is why I feel that the care and keeping of these things is really important, because they do hold power. They have personhood, in my opinion, and they are conduits, they are communication devices to the unseen world. So in the comments down below, let me know what you think. But so But then there's another kind of deck that stops reading. So there's one thing where you, and we're going to give the example, right? Because that's me. I like to give examples. So there's it stops reading for me. I look at it and I go, I know these, and even knowing the book meanings, someone else's written meanings for the cards or whatever cards you're using, right? Because I'm not, you might be using a different deck than Rider-Waite, right? But you look at the cards, even the book meanings, like you're like stymied. You're looking at it going, what the fuck? You got the book open, the guidebook, and you're reading the guidebook. You're looking at the cards. You're reading the guidebook. You're looking at the cards. You're trying to, what's the word? I'm looking for a word. I'm sorry. I can't find the word. You're trying to make it fit, and it doesn't fit. You're like really forcing it to fit. Contrive. You're trying to contrive the meaning of the cards into the question you have, whether it's for you or for your querent. So it's gonna be for you or for your querent, and then we'll talk about when it's like really personal. You get nothing. So I perceive this probably a bit differently than a lot of people, but I perceive it as the spirits didn't show up. If it's a one-off, if it's a deck that normally reads for me really well, and I look at those cards and I get nothing, zero, like I'm like grasping and I can't even come up with book meaning and contrive it to the concern, the question, whatever. I experience that as the spirits aren't showing up. They're not picking up the phone. This is not a good time for reading. So that's one example of, and then in that case, well, it's not a question of clearing your deck and putting it in salt and then, re-imbuing it. Re-imbuing? Is that even a fucking term? But anyway, recharging it with your energy. Then it's not even a case of that. It's a case of, no one's picking up the phone. No one's home. You just got voicemail. So you might as well just put them away and try again later. So it's not the deck that stopped reading. It's that moment that you're not, it's just not happening. And that happens too. But when the deck just stops reading, there's another scenario. So, and this is where I'm going to explore more about when you read for yourself personally. If you have a deck that you've been working with, you've been reading with this thing and has been giving you guidance through a very, very rough time. Because I think, to me, this is where tarot really has an important role in my personal life, is as a compass. Tarot is my communication device to spirits, to my spirit court, for guidance, for problem solving, for goal setting, it's to help me traverse a difficult time, a time where it's like I can't really see in waking life, for example, what the path is, but I'm able to perceive it using the tarot. So suppose, do I have one that, I don't have one right now, but no, I lie. I just showed you one. Miss Hot and Cold here. Okay. This one got me through, and I think this is why it's hot and cold. It reads hot and cold for me, because, for me personally, not for querents. This one got me through a lot. This one guided me through what I could best describe as a desert of my life, fucking snowstorm of my life, ice storm of my life, all of it. Like, it was a lot of tumult. And then it just stopped reading for me. It just stopped reading for me because sometimes it, again, going back to my beliefs, it stopped reading for me after it got me through all that because the spirit or spirits that were assisting me through have left. I'm okay now. I'm on my feet. I'm able to fully stand in my own sovereignty. I'm not requiring all the support I was requiring. I'm fully in my own agency. That could be a reason why the deck stopped reading for me, because the spirits that were coming through so clear have left. Again, people, this is my reality I'm sharing with you. You don't have to agree with it. Everyone has their own way of seeing the world and experiencing the world. This is mine, and this is what I'm talking about today. The last example I want to talk about when it comes, and then I'll talk about the care and keeping of decks and just like some fun stuff. And I'm going to share one that I'm really, really loving. I've used it for quite some time now, and I have I can give a review kind of thing. It's going to be a short one. Sometimes, if you're, when I was going through the whole consumerism bullshit of buying a deck every time I saw a new one on freaking YouTube or Instagram or whatever, I would go out and get it, or I would order it. It was during the pandemic, so there was a lot of online ordering going on. Also, I worked in an environment that was really. I worked throughout the whole pandemic because I'm a healthcare professional. It was my way of blowing off steam, but I learned a lot from that experience. Is that there's certain things that interfere with a deck reading for us. One of them is if, so I'll start with, let's start with, you see a deck, it's popular. The deck is a freaking cultural icon. You receive it, and when you first get it, you're excited, right? It's about this shared experience. And I'll give you a personal account from mine. I got the Wild Unknown. Thing was a huge pop culture icon. It still is, right? I think it's been given the it's been attributed to bringing a whole new generation of people to tarot, and that's wonderful. But it's also, I blame it also for the creation of a lot of clones and anyway. But it doesn't matter because there's clones of even Rider-Waite-Smith, right? So it doesn't matter. But never mind. Never mind my opinion. Let's get back. I get this deck, and everyone's raving about it, and they're talking about how amazing it is. And for me, it didn't read at all. At all when I first got it. And then I had to give it I gave it a chance. And then it did read, and it read very well. And then it just stopped. It just stopped reading for me. I call this the honeymoon period, or the I want this shared experience so bad that I'm going to convince myself that this thing reads well for me, because in hindsight, it never really did. Remember I just said, then it started to read for me, and it read. No. This is me. I had convinced myself that thing was reading for me, when what I was actually doing was looking at that deck looking at the cards on the table, my brain would superimpose the meanings, would attribute, like, I would think of the card that corresponds to Rider-Waite-Smith, and that's how I was reading The Wild Unknown. I wasn't reading, it didn't read for me, ever. But I had that honeymoon period where I was having that shared experience. It was reading for me, but it wasn't. Then, so that is one that, I admit, does not read. It does not read. There's just, but I'd convinced myself that it did for a bit. So when it stopped reading, it was because I had stopped working so hard to superimpose the Rider-Waite-Smith meanings on them, or using those cards visually on the table, but thinking about Rider-Waite-Smith. So that one never really did read. But then there's also something I like to call the new deck trying to impress me honeymoon period. Hear me out. You see this deck and you think, you know what, I'm gonna get this. This totally looks like my kind of thing. And you go out, you either go to a brick and mortar store and you buy it, or you order it online, however you acquire your decks. And you finally have it in your hot little hands. And from card one, so what I do when I get a new deck is I will, especially a tarot deck, oracle decks too, but tarot decks, it has that first card draw to wow me. And I gotta tell you, most of the time they do. Who am I? And this is what I ask a deck. Who am I? So I give it a good shuffle, I draw a card, and it wows me. It wows me with my significator. It wows me with a card that describes my personality, or describes my current condition. It wows me. And it goes on to wow me for quite some time. It's like a torrid love affair. It's infatuation. It's unbelievable. It's all I could talk about with my friends. I'm telling them, oh my gosh, this deck is just freaking amazing. And it's amazing. And this could go on for days, weeks, months. And suddenly, out of nowhere, it goes dead, silent. I draw cards. I'm all excited. I go to this deck and we're going to do a reading on something, and crickets. In this case, I will put it away. I will do the same thing I talked about, the old faithfuls, because this was like a torrid love affair. This thing blew my mind. This thing gave me the best readings of my life up until that moment. This blew my mind to the point where it reminded me why I find this art so fascinating and so nourishing, and so, but now it's gone dead. In that case, I've learned a lesson that I'm going to share with you. In the past, because of the overconsumption and the overwhelm, and there was just too many decks in my environ, I got rid of them. No, but I got rid of them. And some I regret, but I also am someone who likes to live without regret. So I regret for 5 minutes, and then, or I regret for 5 minutes when I think about it, and then it's I let it go. It's fine. It's good. A friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, he once said, and so it's so true, that if you're meant to work with a deck, it will find you. And I've had a I have two that every time I try to, I've gotten rid of them, they have found me. Someone has just sent me a copy. Or I found it at thrift. Like, anyway, same copy. That's wild. Especially when, anyway. But here's my take on it now. If I did have a torrid love affair with a deck, and we worked through a lot of stuff together, and it was short-lived. Like it was like a lightning bolt, total infatuation. Oh my gosh, this thing is amazing. And then it suddenly goes cold. I will not rehome it. That's what I learned. I will not rehome it. You know, everything has, you know, it's like, I treat them like a relationship with people. So we were totally like involved and infatuated, getting to know each other. Now we know each other, and it's cooled down quite a bit. I put it away, and, you know, I place it in order, I clear it, and I store it away, and I don't let it knock on my head about, oh my gosh, I have this deck that I'm not using. Because the overconsumption is what created that mental condition of, I have all these decks that I'm not using. Whereas since I'm not over-consuming, I am not bringing in tons of new decks all the time. Now it's actually getting harder and harder for me to find decks that I like, and that's probably a conversation for another video. I just don't like what's out there. There. It doesn't require another video. I am firmly anti AI when it comes to art for tarot decks. There's no need for it in my life because I have classics that work perfectly fine. So if I never buy a new tarot deck ever again, I will not die. I will not suffer. I'm good. I went on a tangent. I'm sorry. So I will put it away. And an example would be, I first got and you know what? I learned this just recently. Why sometimes, like, why when you have a deck that you have a torrid love affair with, and it reads like a hot damn, and you have like this incredible insight, and it was wonderful, and then it goes silent. Why you should hang on to it? I'm going to tell you a story that I experienced in the month of October. I've had the Halloween Tarot since it was first released. The copy I have right now is like a nice vintage one from 1990, whatever, right? Like I got lucky and I scored a vintage one that shuffles really nicely. But just recently, I don't have my original copy. I don't have my original copy because that was one of my first experiences of, we had this torrid love affair. This thing was like just so much fun to read. It was fun to read for others. We did parties together, the whole thing, and then the thing went freaking dead. And it didn't read for me at all since 1998. 1998. Do the math, people. But I held on to it because it's a classic. And I got rid of my original. No, I didn't. I got rid of my original. Oh, that's a modification story. Okay, sorry. I did have my original from 1993, I think. And that was the first deck that I trimmed because I saw people trimming their decks on the internet. I fucked it up badly. The scissors were a bit dull, and anyway, I hated it once it was trimmed. It was unshuffleable because it was smaller. and uneven, and I got rid of it. I threw it out. Anyway, so I replaced it with one of the current ones from U.S. Games, and I never went back to it because whenever I tried to read from it, it was like it just said nothing. It didn't read, which is odd because it's inspired by Rider-Waite Smith and it should read. But those of you who read tarot will agree that you can have one that's a complete clone of Rider-Waite Smith that doesn't read for you when it doesn't want to read, like, or when it goes dead, right? Or when it doesn't read for you straight out of the box. It doesn't matter if it's a clone or like really strongly inspired by, or you know what I mean, in the tradition of so in October I had challenged myself. I'm going to use the Halloween tarot and another tarot deck. I'm going to use the Halloween tarot all of October because I owned the Halloween tarot and I never used it in October. I rarely read with it at all. I loved it, but I never read with it. And I did. And at first it was a little, it resisted being read is how it felt. And then it was as though it was a strange experience. It was as though I felt, and again, people remember who you're talking, like who's talking to you here, right? Do I have my own little worldview? I felt like it was resisting me. And then finally, it stopped resisting me. It stopped resisting me, I think, about by October 5th, and I was doing daily draws with it. I didn't post all of them. I don't post all my daily draws or readings on Instagram, but I do share the ones that I find really interesting, especially if they're very philosophical in theme. And I felt the resistance relax. And then it was 25, 26 days, this thing read like a hot damn for me. And I was like, wow. So this is what I want to add to if a deck stops reading for you. If you love it because it's beautiful, if you love it because you got along really well and then suddenly it stopped reading for you, put it away. Hang on to it. Especially with how quickly things changed. When I started reading tarot, the same tarot decks were in the stores forever. Like it was always the same ones that were there, right? Now with how quick things, with the turnover so quick, with the interest in indie decks, which go in and out of print, limited editions and all this stuff. If you have one that like reads, like you had this torrid love affair with and it stopped reading for you, clear it, put it away somewhere, like put it away in a nice box, in a bag, its own box, whatever the case is, and set it aside and come back to it later. But when you come back to it, remember what I told you about Halloween Tarot. It resisted. It felt like it was resisting me. It felt like I had to push through some type of resistance, and then it started reading for me, and I was sad to put it away at the end of October. Now I'm going to go back to it because I don't have to read a Halloween themed deck only in October, but that was what was my challenge with myself, or like my exercise that I was doing with it. But I learned about resistance and like pushing through that resistance. But you know what it reminded me of? So remember I talked about the old days? The old days where it was always the same decks in the store? Well, when I first got my first Rider-Waite deck, the yellow box, it didn't really read for me out of the box. I had to learn it. And I learned it by reading it. I didn't learn it from reading a bunch of books or anything like that. No, it was, I learned it by reading it, and the little bit of direction that was in the little white book, right? But most of it, I learned it just from the symbolism and the cards and the imagery. That took me a long time to get to know it. And back in the old days, we would take the time to get to know a deck because we did not have the internet. We didn't not have 24-hour access to shopping online. We did not have, like, decks. A tarot deck in 1986 cost $28. Okay, I paid $28 for my very first tarot deck in 1986. I was making $5.25 an hour. So there's a little history lesson, a little economics lesson too, right? It's like throw it in, you could go onto the internet, throw in what's $28 in 1986 compared to 2025, and you'll see like what it was comparable to. So they weren't cheap. And they weren't easy to find either. You had to get them at a metaphysical shop. And when you went, they either had the one you wanted or they didn't, right? And you had to wait for them to receive more and all this stuff. So I feel like back in those days, I would put a lot of effort into learning how to use the tool. And there was like zero thought of, do I like the art? Is it aesthetically pleasing? Like that is so entitled. That is so entitled. Whenever I hear myself say, oh yeah, that art doesn't appeal to me or whatever, and it's not my aesthetic and all this stuff, I hear the entitlement in my thoughts. I hear the entitlement in my voice when I say it. Because that wasn't even a thing when I started out. Like not even a thing. There was not even a thing to say, oh my God, these cards are so hideous. No, we weren't looking at what the aesthetic of the deck was. We were learning how to use a tool. So I've been talking for a long time, but I did want to just insert a couple of things. I was asked, what do I use? So I like edging my tarot decks. I don't trim them anymore because I learned from the overconsumption and the dark side of that overconsumption. And the dark side of modifying decks for me was that I was starting to, back during the early part of this decade, I was purchasing decks to literally just to cut them up. And I have since learned about myself that it is not, it doesn't jive with my worldview and how I approach the cards and all that stuff. So I don't trim any of my decks at all, because I ended up getting rid of all my trim decks, except for the Halloween Tarot, which I trimmed correctly. Not my first one from the 90s that I butchered, but the next one I got that I trimmed correctly. I kept that one, but that's it. I ended up getting rid of all the decks that I had trimmed the borders off, because it turns out, well, you know what, the borders matter. The borders matter to me. The titles on the cards matter to me. But I do love edging decks, especially there's something about energetically where the edging, when I do the edging, not when it comes with gilding, when I do the edging, it energetically seals the card, each card. It seals it, and I just like the way the deck feels afterwards, energetically. And yeah, okay, let's be honest, I do like the way it looks aesthetically. And people have asked me, I'm going to share with you my favorite markers. 2-edged decks because people are always surprised. I love Crayola, specifically scented Crayola markers. They're inexpensive, they're widely available, and it makes my deck smell nice. So I have a deck that still smells like s'mores from a black Crayola marker I used. The scent doesn't always last, but when it does, it's really fun. And another thing I like to do is scent my decks, either by having them in a box with incense, which you have to be careful because the oils from the incense can damage your cards. So, yeah. But I also like something that has like this kind of velvet lining. Well, velvet. It's cardboard, but it's paper, but it feels like velvet. What I'll do is on the lid, I'll spray it with either with a cologne. This one usually gets sprayed, I think, with Palo Santo cologne. But like I also have like a bit of a perfume collection, so I will scent my decks, just like my Vintage Wisdom Oracle by Victoria Mosley. That one, that's a Chanel No. 5. That's a vintage Chanel No. 5 scented deck. So I like that. So in the care of keeping in my decks, I think I've shared my weirdness with you today. And one last thing I just wanted to share with you is my favorite Oracle deck of 2025. It's safe for me to say it. I got it this summer. If you follow me on Instagram, it shows up a lot. It shows up a lot because I saw this. It was Wiser had it on their page. See, Wiser's my publisher, but this one I purchased with my own money. Wiser had shown it on their Instagram channel, and I hadn't even within 30, I don't know, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, I can't even tell you. I went and I purchased it online. And it's the Oracle of Rewilding. Forgive me if I've already mentioned it in the last little couple of minutes here since I came back to YouTube. I love this. And I think what really, so the artist, Alexandra Eldridge, her art is so evocative. This is a fine pardon me. This is a fine art deck. This is her painting. These are paintings. These are her paint. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll show you some, but we're not doing a flip through. I just want to talk about why I love it. I think that there's not enough of this kind of deck on the market. But this, so if you love, that is funny, I just mentioned Victoria Mosley's Vintage Wisdom. If you love Vintage Wisdom Oracle, you might want to give this one a try. So I'm going to try to show you. Just again, I'm not a flip through a review channel. I'm just wanting to share you stuff I'm excited about. So her paintings, I hope I get this right. She got some glass negatives from the 1800s of photographs, and at an antique store or something, or at auction. Alexandra Eldridge is like an artist, like bona fide artist, right? So you could look her up online. And she created these paintings where there's animal heads on the people. And they are absolutely evocative. They're brilliant. Now, it's a collaboration. The other person involved, I think, is a psychoanalyst, Sherry Salmon. And the keywords are just... The keywords... I'm very... critical of the keywords in Oracle decks. these instead. These are actually quite unique. And I'm sorry if you can't see it. Like even with like the ring light is like horrendous for this kind of stuff. But anyways, if you follow me on Instagram, go have a look, okay? Because I like to use these a lot. The way I use Oracle decks, Oracle cards, I think I mentioned my most recent video, my most recent past video, is I draw an Oracle deck, and to expand on the message from the Oracle deck, I will use tarot. And anyways, I am loving this. This is, to me, this is like peak Oracle deck. It's widely available. It's published by Wiser Books, and I'm smitten. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think this is like the big winner for me for 2025 in terms of Oracle decks. I don't know if it has mass appeal, because I don't know. I just know my own experience with it. And I find it to be like, it reminds me, it does have a vibe, of course, because of, it has a vibe like vintage wisdom, but I find it to be a little more liminal. And I think it has to do with the shape-shifting aspect in the art. It's very liminal. It has a very Victorian feel. It has a very spiritualist feel. It has a very between the worlds kind of spirit communication energy to it, and it's very ethereal. I know that's not for everybody, right? So I'm just describing to you what it is I like about it, but your mileage may vary, right? And I think that's pretty much my message when it comes to, I could tell you what why I'm enthusiastic about it, why I love it so much. It is for me my this is my darling of 2025, and I just I really enjoy working with it, like reading with it. It works for me for divination. It works for me for ritual, and also for contemplation, and I'm doing a lot of readings that are very philosophical in nature. That's been where that's where my introspection goes, where I will draw cards, and I will draw inspiration to, it'll remind me of a poem that I've read that I love, or a quote or a piece of music. And I mentioned this in a previous video. So this is where I'm going with this. So again, that is why I can share with you what I'm really excited about. I can share with you what I'm really passionate about right now, but that doesn't mean it's going to be for you. There, I said it. Oh my gosh, I'm still talking. It's over an hour. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. In the comments down below, share. Do you have, because I'm always curious to know what other people do with the care and keeping of their decks. Is there something that you do with your decks that you feel like sharing? Isn't too personal or whatever, in how you care for them, whether you scent them, edge them. Do you create homes for them, like boxes and bags and stuff like that? And more importantly, what is your relationship to your decks? Are they persons? Are they tools? Are you like me that they're both? Are they just tools? Are they just pieces of paper? Let's share, because I don't want the echo chamber. I want us to share And that's how I learn. I learn by hearing other people's thoughts and experiences. All right. Thank you so much. Again, I'm doing the long-winded Italian-American goodbye. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. And wherever you are in the world, I'm wishing you a beautiful week. Bye-bye.